kitchen. Today we are going to make a chocolate cherry cake, otherwise known as a Black Forest cake. And this one just seemed right for right now. We're really close to Valentine's Day, so chocolate and cherries seem celebratory and romantic. And it's super cold out today, so it seems like a great day to bake. So thank you for joining me. If you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to dive right in. I know people who come to watch this in a couple of years. It's not going to be the day before Super Bowl, but for us here live today it is. So thank you for coming for this, and you can serve this cake to your Super Bowl party. Okay, so the first thing that we have to do is bake our cake layers. I am doing the Devil's Food cake from my book, Zoebakes Cakes, which is right there. And Steph is in the chat room, so she can put links up if you need them. So we're doing the Devil's Food cake, but you can also use my hot chocolate cake. That cake's a little bit lighter, both in texture and in flavor. So kind of depending on what kind of chocolate cake you like. I like something that's super rich and dense and intensely chocolate, and that's the Devil's Food. If you want something that's a little bit lighter, then go with the hot chocolate cake. Having said that, you can use any cake in your chocolate cake repertoire, and this will come together beautifully. So the first thing that we're going to do is bake the cake. I have two 8-inch cake rounds for the Devil's Food, and you can see that they are 8 inches by 3 inches. I love this cake pan because I can bake just about anything in it. I would say the most important thing about a cake pan is the shape. So they don't have to be 3 inches tall. You can get 2-inch cake pans as well. I like this one because it's more versatile. But the important thing is that they have straight sides and not these sort of old-fashioned cake pans that splayed out like this, which were designed specifically to stack in your cabinet. And I have to say that is excellent because these take up quite a bit of space in my cabinet, but they're worth it because when you have a cake that splays out like this, you end up with the edge of the cake that you have to trim in order to get a nice straight-sided cake. So if you start out with a cake pan that has straight sides, you're just that much ahead. If you've read my cake book, you know that I love to grease a pan with butter. But then halfway through writing the cake book, I switched over to baking spray because I was greasing so many pans that it became half of my day to grease a pan. So obviously butter is going to taste better, so always use butter if you can, but I've stopped judging with the spray. It's just faster and it gets the job done really, really well and really simply and easily. You don't want a whole bunch of it because it's not butter. So just a really light spray of your spray, and then you really, really want parchment paper rounds. You can cut them out of a parchment sheet. If you're baking a lot of cakes, I say just buy them in the rounds. It's easier. It's one of those things that just saves you time. They may cost a tiny, tiny, tiny bit more, but I just find my time is worth it. So you're gonna press that down into the spray, peel it back up, flip it, and then you've got both sides done. That way you're not spraying even more of that into your pan. Same thing is true as if you're using butter. So very light spray along the pan, put your parchment in, flip it, and then make sure that it's snug down to the bottom. and then we'll just set those aside and get to our cake. This devil's food cake is super, super easy to make. We don't need a mixer. Oh, sorry, man, that's a lot of glass clanging. We don't need a mixer. We don't need a stand mixer or a hand mixer. Just a whisk will do it. You can do this also with a Danish dough whisk, but really just such a simple recipe. This is called a tammy, and it is a sieve that is designed for this kind of like mixing or sifting flour and different dry ingredients together. You can also use a regular sieve to do this. I don't typically sift my flour. It's not really necessary when you're using all-purpose flour. The only time I really sift flour is if I'm using cake flour and it's very, very clumpy. But the reason that I have this today is because of the cocoa powder. The cocoa powder has a tendency, I'm going to show you, to be very lumpy. Can you see that? Are you down on it? So you can see all of those huge lumps in there. The other one that tends to be very lumpy is baking soda. And so if I'm using either of those ingredients, I like to sift it because I don't want a big mouthful of cocoa powder and I really don't want a mouthful of baking soda. So using a sieve of some kind to sift your dry ingredients is great. I'm going to also put my salt in there. I'm using baking salt, so it's very, very fine. It melts right into the recipe really well. But also that, especially if it's humid in your kitchen, can get clumpy too. So all of that goes into my tammy or into my sieve, and I just shimmy it until it goes through, and you can see all of the lumps. It's like we're looking for gold. And then once I'm down to all the sort of lumpy bits, you can see the baking soda and the cocoa powder, and then I just press it down in there. The tammy just has more surface area, so it's easier to get it done. Okay, that's it. And then now I'm going to add all of my liquid ingredients. You can do this two ways. If you want to just do it in one bowl, you can. You can just dump it in there and stir it up. So I have my eggs, I have buttermilk, I have oil, I have hot coffee, and rum. Oh, and sugar. I forgot my sugar. That didn't need to go through the tammy because it doesn't get clumpy. So once I have that, I'll just give this dry a good mix and then start adding my liquids to it. Just like that. Basically, I'm whisking it until it's all sort of one uniform color. And that's just to make sure that the baking soda, the salt, the flour and cocoa powder are all sort of one uniform dry mixture, and then we can start adding our liquids. I'm going to start with my eggs, just 2 eggs into my mix. My oil goes in. I'm using just like a vegetable oil or anything that has a neutral flavor to it, although you could do an olive oil and just call this an olive oil, a chocolate olive oil cake. If you like that flavor, olive oil is obviously more assertive and you're gonna actually taste it as opposed to it just adding moistness to your cake. Okay, so that's that, a little bit of vanilla extract into the mix. And then my coffee. The coffee should be warm so that when the batter goes into the oven, it's already slightly warmed up. That will just make it, one, bake faster and activate your baking soda right away. And then we're just gonna stir this all together. The one thing I need to get in there is my rum. A couple of lugs of rum.
Hey Zoe,
Yeah.
how do you spell Tami?
I think it's T-A-M-I.
Oh,
Is that right? I think so.
also, can you use melted butter?
You can. It's okay. So this recipe you can use melted butter. The difference is it's going to be delicious, but the difference is going to be in the texture. When you have a cake made with oil as opposed to butter, the butter solidifies once it's like at room temperature or refrigerated, and the oil doesn't. So I just find that the texture for this cake is nicer with the oil. I had all kinds of cocoa powder under my nails. It's not a good look. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to put in there is my buttermilk. I usually get questions about from people about the coffee and the rum because people don't always. I am such a coffee drinker. I love coffee. It's the first thing I think about in the morning and the last thing I think about when I go to bed. Like, I can't wait to have my coffee in the morning. That may be a problem, but I love it. Not everybody loves coffee, and not everybody drinks rum or alcohol. You don't taste either of those things in this cake. They are just there to sort of balance out the sweet and the chocolate and make it more intense, but you don't taste them. Even though there's quite a bit of coffee in there, it's hidden by the sugar and the cocoa, but it really does give the devil's food the balance that you need. In my book, I give alternatives. You can, well, this won't count. This won't help if you're not doing alcohol, but you can use stout, like a beer, or you can use Coca-Cola. I feel like I gave another alternative in there. Maybe Stephanie can find it for me. But there are alternatives, but I would say try it with the coffee and the rum first. The rum all cooks out, and so you don't have to worry about there being actual alcohol in the cake. But it really, oh, my oven is now preheated just in time. It really just gives this cake the depth that I love so much. Okay, so then we are going to pour our batter equally into the pans. I mean, see how easy that was? So easy. If you make the hot chocolate cake, that one is uses butter. Lots of eggs. It's a really light, beautiful texture. And like I said, it's light in the texture, but it's also lighter in the flavor, and it has that buttery taste. So if you want a cake that's made with butter, you can try that one. And that one you would do in the mixer, creaming the butter and sugar and adding the eggs to it. Okay, that's it. Now we've got to bake this up into our layers. Before I put it into the pan, before I put it into the oven, I'm going to tap the pan on the counter, because as I was whisking it and as I was pouring it, I put air bubbles into the pan, and I just want to tap some of them out. It's very loud. You can't tap all cake batter, but this is one that you can. And in my book, I always will give you that direction if I want you to do it, if I want you to get the air bubbles out. Okay, so I'm just gonna look at this. I didn't weigh out the batter to make sure that they're exactly the same. So I very scientifically use my finger and I put it in one and then I put it in the other and see if the lines match up. That is not exactly a pro tip, but it's a tip. Okay, one more tap into the oven, and then I can move on to building our cake. Let me know if there's any questions, Gray.
Yeah, Stephanie's kind of got it covered.
Oh, she does?
Yeah.
Okay, of course she does.
The question was, if you don't want to use rum, what
Oh.
could you use? And Stephanie is,
On it?
yeah, she said you can use extra coffee.
Oh, yes,
but,
yes. Extra
or,
coffee.
or Coke.
Or Coca-Cola. Yeah, yep, exactly. Okay, so the next thing that we're gonna do is our cherry filling. And what we're gonna do is I'm using frozen cherries for this, and I actually prefer the frozen ones because the fresh ones have a much, much harder time releasing their juice, and so you don't get all of that good sort of sauciness that we want from this. And so I recommend, even if cherries are in season, that you make this part of it with frozen cherries. Defrost them. You can either let them sit out overnight or you can do it in the microwave. This is a combination of dark sweet cherries and sour cherries because that's what I had. So the recipe calls for dark sweet cherries, but sour cherries are always great. They kind of cut the sweet too. So if you don't want a filling that's really sweet, you can go with the combination or all sour cherries. If you go with all sour cherries, you may want to bump up the sugar just a tiny bit. Maybe taste it as you go and see. So what I'm doing is I defrosted the fruit so that it releases all of the juice, and then I'm just going to strain the juices into the pan. So I'm using a fine sieve here. I guess it's okay if some of the fruit gets in there, but all I want in here is the juice. I don't want the fruit because I don't want to cook the fruit and have the fruit sort of fall apart when I'm cooking it. I just want to cook and sort of get those juices tightened up with some sugar and some cornstarch. The key to this, because it's super simple, the key to this recipe is cooking it completely. So it says in the book to cook it for about 3 minutes, and you don't want to skimp on that because if you don't cook the cornstarch for 3 minutes, it'll still be kind of cloudy, and the worst thing that happens is that it'll start to separate if you don't fully cook the starch out of it. So I'll show you in 1 second.
Couple questions.
Yeah.
Can you use canned black cherries in syrup?
Okay, so canned black cherries in syrup, that you're not talking about a pie filling, right? You're just talking about the cherries that are in syrup but that are still liquidy. Yes, you absolutely could do that. I don't think that those have sugar, but if they do,
the syrup has
oh,
sugar,
the
yeah.
syrup, right? You'll have to adjust the amount of sugar. If they're so sweet, you may not even need extra sugar. You'll just cook them in the cornstarch. If you're talking about a pie filling, you wouldn't cook it at all. You would just use the pie filling. That's actually a really simple, good option.
And if you plan to freeze the cake,
Yes.
does it make any difference between oil or butter?
Well, not entirely. Honestly, I like the texture of oil cakes when they're frozen because, again, that butter doesn't get like rock solid. I just find the texture of them. I find oil cakes also last longer. Like, you can keep this devil's food cake for several days if it lasts that long. Whereas I find a butter cake tends to, like the hot chocolate cake, I feel like it's great for the first couple of days, but beyond that, I don't love the texture as much as something made with an oil. Okay, so before we cook the sugar in the fruit juices, I'm going to add the cornstarch, just a little bit, the cornstarch into the sugar and whisk that up. This just prevents you from getting little cornstarch like dumplings in your juice. And also, if you just dump cornstarch in there, it'll either clump up or fly around the room. So by adding it to your sugar first, you can put it into the juice and it just sort of disperses much, much quicker. The last thing that we're going to add here, which I forgot to grab, is Kirschwasser. Kirschwasser is a cherry liqueur, and you can substitute brandy or basically anything for it. Cognac, or you can just leave it out altogether if you want to, but that Kirschwasser is just sort of a lovely little, whenever you add like alcohol or something acidic to it, it's really a sort of a balancing flavor to a dessert, because I don't personally want anything that's just straight out sweet. I want it to have like more complexity to that, and by adding alcohol, you'll get that. Oh, is that what you found? That's great. That's perfect. Thank you. So, Graham found, I can't say it and read this at the same time. Graham found framboise, which is essentially the same as Kirschwasser, but raspberry. So that'll be lovely. And a little of that. One more, since it's the end of the bottle. Somebody I know is drinking it.
Nobody. Not the cameraman.
The cameraman was drinking my framboise. A little bit more vanilla, and then we're just gonna cook this on the stove. Okay, can you see into the pan? I don't know if you can see it, but it's sort of milky and cloudy and very, very thin, liquid in fact. And then when we cook it on the stove, whisking entirely the whole time for 3 minutes, which will feel like an hour and a half trying to do this in front of you. But it's 3 minutes. It will come out translucent and shiny and thick. That's what we're going for. It might look that way after like a minute and a half or 2 minutes, but keep going for the full 3 minutes. Otherwise, like I said, you won't cook out the starch and it will weep in your recipe, meaning it will release some of the liquid, because the starch is there to absorb the liquid content of the juice and keep it all together. If you're using fresh cherries, you're going to want to add some water to this because, like I said before, they don't really release that much juice on their own. So once this starts, if there are any questions, let me know, right? Because I have to just stand here and whisk this for a minute.
Okay. Yeah, there's no questions right now.
Okay.
This is in the Zoe Bakes Cakes book, correct?
Yes, yes.
Do you want to tell them what page, or you want me to find it while you
Yes.
stir your thing?
Yes, that would be awesome. Thank you. Okay, we're starting to boil. Once we start to boil, I really need to stand here and whisk it. I mean, you don't have to, you know, go crazy with that, but in order for it to thicken evenly, it's better if you're whisking it. We need a camera over the stove. Oh, the other thing, Graham, is, I guess I got that going a little high. If you could grab my, the whipped cream, it's all measured out in the refrigerator.
Yep.
Okay, I'm gonna show you that, I think, what have I been whisking this for, like a minute or two? Minute?
Ish.
Okay. But you can see even now, is it good? You can see that it looks pretty, it's getting thicker and it doesn't look as cloudy, but I haven't gone 3 minutes, even though nobody's actually paying attention to how long it's been. But I can tell just by looking at it that it's not quite 3 minutes. So another minute and we should be good. But go the 3 minutes and it'll be perfect. Thank you. The other thing I didn't.
This is the recipe, right?
Yes, yes.
So it's page 172 of Zoe Bakes Cakes.
The other thing that I did not time was the cake. Huh. So we can maybe look in the video and see what time. Oh. Okay, here we go. This looks good. This looks very good. Okay, can you see that? See how thick it looks and how shiny it's getting, and it no longer has that milkiness, but when you whisk it, it doesn't immediately go back like liquid. So that's pretty good. Okay, as this was sitting here, a little bit more liquid came out of it. I don't want to add that liquid back into it unless I cook it, because I don't want my cherries to be too runny. Okay, so once you've cooked that, let me see if I can't show you better. You can see how shiny it is, and it's pretty thick. Once you add the cherries and then refrigerate it, it's going to thicken up even more. So we'll just add the cherries back into it, save that juice for drinking or a cocktail or something yummy. Stir this together, and then I'm going to put it into a shallow dish so that it cools off faster, and then refrigerate it. You don't want to put this on your cake warm, otherwise you will melt the whipped cream that we're about to make. So let this cool. This can be done a day or two ahead, but look at that, nice and thick. My cherries are still whole and look beautiful. Like I said before, if I had cooked the fruit with the juice and the cornstarch, the fruit would start to break down and it wouldn't be as pretty. So this is I do this when I'm making pies too. I will thicken the juices with the cornstarch and then add the fruit back into it. But this can go into the refrigerator. No, it's okay because I have one already made. Okay, and then next up is our whipped cream. Let me just get some of this out of my way. Can you see all of this? I don't want it to be distracting. This is the only bit that I'm going to use a mixer for, is to make the whipped cream. You can absolutely do that by hand, but it's a lot of work. If you do whip the cream by hand, you want to use a balloon whisk. This is a balloon whisk versus an egg. This is an egg whisk, a balloon whisk. This will give you more volume quicker. And so if you're gonna ever whip whipped cream or eggs by hand, this is the tool for you. But I'm not gonna do that because I like it when my machine does the work for me. Okay.
Hey, Stephanie is curious how you made those sugar crusted cherries.
That's coming.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna
Stephanie,
do that.
You're just gonna have to wait. Sorry.
Is that our Stephanie? Yes, it's coming, it's coming. That's gonna be our garnish. At the end, I have two things to garnish the cake with. Chocolate shavings and these sugared cherries. So I will do that. Okay, so I'm gonna whip the whipped cream. Graham got the whipped cream out of the refrigerator at the last second because the colder the cream is, the better it'll whip and the longer it will last. So leave it in the refrigerator as long as possible. When it comes to whipping cream, there's a couple of tips that I can give you. Where did that sugar go? Here we go. I'm just adding a little bit of confectioner's sugar. I don't want it to be too sweet because we're adding it to the cake layers and the cherries are sweet, so I don't need this whipped cream to be super sweet. Although if you watched my show and you watched me make the banana pudding and I didn't put any sugar in it and served it to a child, this was not my best move ever, but I personally loved it. So just know your audience, that's all. Okay, so a little bit of confectioner's sugar, a little more vanilla into our bowl, and then we're gonna mix this on a medium-low speed so that we have tiny, tiny little air bubbles in there. The one thing about building this cake with devil's food instead of the hot chocolate cake is that the devil's food is very dense and kind of heavy, so we want to make sure that our whipped cream can withstand the weight of it. So medium speed. only problem is it takes longer. Okay, I'm gonna just put this here so it's not quite so noisy. When it comes to whipping cream, can you hear me okay? Yep.
No.
Okay, when it comes to whipping cream, if you're not using a stand mixer, like glass and stainless steel are great. The one thing to avoid is plastic. Plastic bowls will not whip whipped cream well or egg whites. And so oftentimes if I get a comment or a question about whipped cream not getting as thick and as stiff as someone wants, it's oftentimes because they're using hand mixer in a plastic bowl. So it just doesn't work as well. Keeping it nice and chilled and on a low speed, and that's it. I usually go until the cream is just starting to leave streaks, or the whip attachment is just starting to leave streaks in the cream, and then I take it out and I finish it up by hand so I don't over whip it, because once you've over whipped it, it's a little bit hard to come back from it. That kind of depends on how far gone you are. If you've gone way too far, just make butter. You don't want to waste the cream, but you may not want to use it in your cake. Okay, so that's going. If that's not too loud and I can move on, I'll show you how to do the cherries. Is that okay? Okay.
What about the kids?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go by smell. I'll look at them. The cakes will be about 30 minutes in the oven. So how long have we been going?
37 minutes.
Oh, okay, but I didn't put it in right at the beginning, so I should be fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Someone asked, would a steak,
What?
would a stabilized whipped cream like with mascarpone be good for the
Yes,
steak?
yes, yes. Okay, I'm actually gonna have to wait on this because my cream is almost ready. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna wait with the cherries. Hold that thought. And instead, we're gonna go right into our cake. I'll get back to this in 1 second. Can you see the mixer still or no?
I can see the mixer, yeah,
Okay.
but not standing.
Okay. Let me put it back on the counter because we're getting really close. Remember when I said that I usually stop right around the time that the whisk attachment is leaving streaks in the cream? Can you see down in there?
Yep.
Okay. See how you can see that it's getting thick? This is right when I stop with the mixer. This is probably a little bit soon, but just to make sure that I don't overdo it. Hold on, let me get rid of this. Okay, and then I'll just take the whisk and finish this by hand. I probably could have gone a little bit longer, but because it's a little too thin, too soft. It's not standing up straight, and like I said, this devil's food is quite dense and thick and heavy. And so if I were to stop here, see how it doesn't stand up at 12 o'clock, it sort of sloops over to 9 o'clock. Did I get that right on the clock? It just won't have the body that I'm looking for. So I'm just gonna keep going until I I've got a really nice, thick, stiff peaked cream so that it will hold. See, there we go. See how it's standing straight up. It's not slooping over. Okay, so that looks good. And now, what?
Should probably sniff the cake.
Oh, you want me to go look at the cake?
Yeah.
I'll be right back. Yeah, it's got, I would say, 5 minutes. Okay, I didn't use a tester. I just stuck my fingers in there and tapped it, and it was still a little bit liquidy on the top, just very, very gently touching it with my fingers. So I knew that it wasn't even ready to be tested, but in 5 minutes, if you'll let me know, that'd be great.
Question about the whipped cream. Will the whipped cream last a couple of days, or will it go flat eventually?
If you whip the cream on really low speed like this and have these teeny tiny little air bubbles, it's very, very stable. If you whip it really, really fast and you have giant air bubbles, those air bubbles will pop, and that's what makes your whipped cream weep. So depending on how you whip it, it can whip and last for a couple of days. The other thing is that you want to pick a cream that has a really high fat content to it, because then it has more stability as well. If your cream is not as high fat, it won't last quite as long. Okay, so I like to build my cakes on a cake board like this, because then I can pick them up and put them in the refrigerator. I'm eventually going to put this onto a cake stand, but putting a cake stand in the refrigerator is not always convenient. So if I put it on a cardboard round like this, I have an easier time picking it up and moving it. If you don't want the cardboard round, you can build this right on your cake stand. So we may do a little of both. Before you build the cake, you know what I might do is get my cake stand over here. Okay. Before you fill your cake, make sure that you peel the parchment paper off the bottom. I promise you, you only do that once. I am going to trim the dome off of this. These actually came out pretty flat, but because I'm building one on top of the other, I want to make sure that my cake has a nice flat top to it, so that the other cake on top isn't like sort of sitting on a round thing and not having something steady to sit on. So, hold on one second. A little bit of wet paper towel under your cake will secure it while you are trying to cut, and it's not shimmying all over your cake stand. Okay, so I'm just trimming the top so that it's nice and flat. I don't even have to go all the way to the outer edge. And then I can fill this. With our cream. If your cream has been sitting for any amount of time, just give it a little bit of a stir, just to make sure it's nice and thick. And then a good amount. Half of your cream goes into the middle, not too much, because again, it has to carry the weight of the cake above it. Can you see all that?
Sure can.
Okay. And then we're just going to, you can use an offset spatula, but why get one more thing dirty since we're not going for perfectly smooth here anyway. Okay. And then we're going to do our cherries, which I had already made and refrigerated and chilled so that they would be ready to go. And that is where? Here.
Nancy has a question about your cake board. Like, you see how you have a naked cake and
Yeah.
you can see the little light
Yes.
at the bottom?
Yes. If you don't want that, then just do it right on.
Don't use the board.
Don't use the board. Okay. The other thing that I can do is show you how to get it off of the board. But for this cake in particular, you could absolutely just do it right onto your cake stand and not have the board. The board is, like you said, because this one's naked, if you were gonna buttercream it, you wouldn't see the board until you cut it. And some people don't even wanna see the board then. So what you can do is, after you're done, you know, if you're doing this a day ahead and when you're ready to present it, use a cake lifter. Graham, do you know what I mean by that? In this cabinet right here, I have this round, it looks like a round spatula. Okay, so here's our cherry filling. You can see that those juices in the refrigerator really set up quite a bit. Quite a bit, actually. I could even, for the top one, I have that little bit of juice left in the bowl. I'm gonna add a little bit of that. I think for this middle layer, this is perfect. But for the top layer, I want it to sort of like drizzle down the side a little bit. Did you find it?
No.
Oh, you didn't? Okay. I'll try to find it. Yeah, so this is perfect for the middle because I don't want this to sort of ooze out the sides. And then I'm going to put my top layer on. And I'm going to trim it on the just on here so that I'm not putting any extra pressure on the cake itself. Move the paper. And then I'm going to just put this on here, like so. Okay, let's get rid of this. Okay, and then our last bits of the cream. If you slightly over whip your cream, you can always add another couple of tablespoons of cream and fold those through, and that typically, if you just slightly over whipped it, that will bring it back into emulsion so that it doesn't look grainy. If you really over whipped it, like I said, just go with butter. Make a lot of butter. In one of the episodes of my show, I did that by accident, and we just went with it. We made like a sweet flour-filled butter. It was actually quite delicious. Okay. And then what I was saying earlier is, where did I put the, oh my goodness, there's so many bowls of so much stuff. Oh, here we go. Okay. if this is a little bit tighter than you want, I'm just gonna add like a teaspoon of the juice back into it and thin it out just a little bit. The other way that you could do this is to put it into the microwave for about 10 seconds and just loosen it up a little bit. You don't want it too loose because you don't want it to sort of like drip off of the sides, but I want it to have a little bit of movement on the top. I don't want it to be too thick. So that helped. A couple drops more. Yeah, that looks better. I did like that other texture for the inside though, because I do think it'll just sort of hold up better. But this has a nice movement to it. Can you see what I mean? It just has like, it's not quite as stiff, and I think it's gonna look prettier. So now I'm gonna lift this off of here. Oh, is it 5 minutes?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah. This is, yeah, that's great. Perfect, thank you. Okay. And I need you to shut that. Okay, our cakes are actually perfect and done. So I'm just gonna rest them here. Oh my goodness, it smells so good. Okay, so back to my cake. I'm gonna put this on the cake stand. Here. You never found that spatula, huh?
No, I never did.
I'm gonna show you with just a regular spatula. This one's really long, and so it works nicely for this. The other one, I'll try to find it in a second. But what I'm doing is I'm getting under there, under the cake, and then you can use 2 spatulas too. The more surface area you have under here, the better off you are. It also depends on the type of cake. This cake has quite a bit of structure to it, and so it lifted easily. I would say with the hot chocolate cake, it would have been tougher because it's a lighter cake and it doesn't have as much body to it. Okay, so now I'm gonna add my cherries to the top. Ooh.
Cherry went flying.
Yeah, I had to run away. Cherries on the top. Smells really good. Okay, and then just drizzle a little bit of the juices around. We can call it a day there, or
You got a big old cherry sitting on this side.
okay, that's good. That's okay. The next thing that I want to do is some chocolate shavings. This is a pretty traditional way to finish off a Black Forest cake. This is a bar of bittersweet chocolate from Trader Joe's, and I love this because it's nice and thick and it's a big bar, and so it's easy to get shavings with it. I'm going to use a chef's knife. Is that the one I want? Yeah. I'm going to use a chef's knife, which just is a large, straight-edged knife. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my nice warm hands and warm up the surface of the chocolate. That'll give you, the warmer the chocolate is, the larger the shavings will be. So it kind of depends on the look you're going for. You don't obviously want it to be too warm, otherwise it will just be sort of mush. So, but your hands are a good way to do it. Okay, and kind of a mess. Then I have this towel that I'm actually going to put right here. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I'm going to push the chocolate right against me because I need some resistance, because I'm going to be pulling my knife towards me and really pushing down. Not so hard that you're going to break the chocolate, but I'm going to be pushing down in order to get some shavings off of it. The first ones maybe won't be as nice because the chocolate won't be flat yet, but eventually you'll get some nice shavings. Okay.
I'm shooting down on this one.
Okay, can you see?
Yeah.
Am I in a good spot?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so edge down, you can see I'm firmly holding the actual blade, and then I'm just going to drag it towards me. And so I have this towel, I can put it down a little bit more so it doesn't flop over, but I just don't want the chocolate to get all over my clothes. Okay, and that's, can you see the shavings? Mm-hmm. And then as we get them built up on the knife, we'll just put them onto our cake. And then gently scoop these up and drop them onto the cake. It's really fun, so you're gonna wanna just like pile this high up onto your cake. So we can I'll do a couple more just to show you, but I think you got the idea here. Give me some room. So just press down as hard as you can without breaking the chocolate, and just scooch it towards you. And then, look at that, they're so pretty. Okay, and scatter them about. Some can go off to the side to join the cherry on the edge. Okay, it looks great, and you can totally leave it like that. Let me just get rid of this. You can totally leave it like that, but one more thing. These sugar cherries are just so pretty, and they're a great way to end it. I'm using, honestly, I usually use an egg white, but the egg situation right now is such that you may want to use meringue powder. So this, what I have here is a slurry of like a teaspoon of meringue powder and a tablespoon plus of water. Just whisk that together. Take your clean cherries with the stem and throw them. Take your cherry, just dip it, and then dip it into the sugar, and that's it. So simple, so easy. You can do these ahead. If you do them ahead, the sugar will turn into like a crispy candy almost, and you want to, if you do them ahead, you want to leave them at room temperature, because the moisture of your refrigerator will just make the sugar melt, but it's just sort of a pretty little extra on the top here. And that's it, voila! So thank you so much for joining me. I hope that you've joined the Zoe's Baking Academy Challenge, and you're gonna make either a Black Forest cake, this chocolate cherry cake, or the chocolate cherry pound cake that's also in the newsletter. So check that out. Thank you so much for joining me. Have a great weekend, and yeah, enjoy. Please subscribe to my YouTube and tell everybody you know about it. And if you have questions, you can still leave them and I'll get back to you. Thank you. Do you want a piece?
I do. Yeah.
Oh, good.
Thanks. All right. Bye.